at Ramchand and Raval, where we have helped thousands of individuals navigate the complexities of U.S. immigration law. Today's topic is, how do I prepare for my employment-based green card interview? Now, there's a lot of websites that have sample question and answers, which can sometimes be confusing, but there are out there. The thing is, when you're going in for these interviews, the interviewer can ask almost any question. So today's topic is, how do I prepare for my employment-based green card interview? Now, the format is a little different. I'm going to have you listen in on a conversation between myself and my client. And for purposes of anonymity, his name is VJ. So VJ is a great guy, of course, very sharp. I remember when VJ called me, he called me about a day or two after receiving his interview appointment. And he said, "Hey, Sachin, aren't they waiving all these interviews?" I said, "Look, they are for the vast majority of them, but they didn't for you. So you need to prepare." VJ got right into preparation mode. So he said, "Okay, what do I do?" I said, "Well, first things first, you study your adjustment of status file. Study your labor certification. Know your petitioner. And finally, ensure that any publicly available information about you or your employment history is consistent with what you've provided the federal government." So what does this mean? LinkedIn profiles, Facebook profiles. Make sure it's all consistent and honest. 3 very important things I want you to be aware of in this conversation. First thing is, note VJ's preparedness. Note his emotional intelligence. He knew how to interact with the interviewer. And note his situational awareness. He interacted with the interviewer, but he understood the gravity of what was at stake here without letting nerves get the better of him. He dressed the part of a professional. He spoke to the interviewer about the office, the environment. He did a great job. Anyway, without getting too much into detail, here you go. Here's the conversation. And by the way, for purposes of anonymity, of course, his picture is not there. It's not a video interview. Rather, it's an audio interview. So for those of you listening to this on the podcast, it'll blend right in. But for those of you watching on YouTube, now it's cutting to audio. Here you go. Here you have it.
All right. So Vijay, thank you for doing this call with us. It's going to help our viewers a lot. I wanted to ask you how your experience was with your employment-based interview. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about you, about yourself. Give me a little bit of a background about yourself.
I've been working with my employer for close to 15 years now, and I've been on the same client, with the same client for same number of time, like close to 14 and a half years. So my priority date was somewhere in 2010, and I was on EB3. So that's the overall data I have.
Okay. So when did you apply for your green card?
It's somewhere in 2010, early 2010.
Early 2010 was when the labor process started for you. So that's when you locked in your priority date, yes. I imagine. Okay. Yeah. And then your actual green card, we applied in October of 2020?
Yeah, October of 2020. Yeah, that's when you filed for the 485.
Tell me, did you have any challenges, any of your, and you've been on H-1B this entire time, right?
Yes, I have been on H-1B, and just because my 140 is approved, so after 6 years, I could continue with my H-1B. And generally, I used to have 3 years of extension over the years. There was 1 year where I had for 1 year extension, but otherwise, there were not much issues in the extension.
What were your biggest challenges with your case? What were your concerns about going into this process, this final process of applying for the green card?
The only concern I had was like, mine was a straightforward case. I mean, I've spoken to you and you said mine was just like one employer, one client. I had everything straightforward, no DUIs. So my only concern was when they called for interview, I was like, the only concern, the biggest concern is I didn't go to India for like 13 years. So after 2008, I never went to India because of personal reasons. Like my parents used to visit here, so I didn't have a reason to go there. And even if I had to go, I had to apply for visa again. Like that's, that process takes a week, and at the most you can have 2 weeks of vacation. And your 1 week is just wasted in getting your documents ready and all that stuff. And the client was not interested to let somebody work offshore, especially this client. So either you have to stay without pay for that period if you're stuck in India. So that's the reason why I was like, if needed, I would have gone. But my parents visited every alternate year. So that's the only concern I had, like 13 years not being to India. So I was worried whether that was the case why they called for interview. So that's the only concern I had.
How did you prepare a month in advance, a week in advance, the night before, the actual date that you walked in for the interview? If you did at all, tell me about that process.
I did prepare. So to tell you the truth, I did prepare. The day I got the interview letter, the first thing is a couple of days after that, I had a call with you and you said, my case is straightforward. It's just a casual interview. And we went through the case again and we said, there's nothing here which should have flagged out. It could be a random pick. So that gave me a little more confidence. And then, as you suggested, you asked me to go through my 485, like you forwarded me the 485 application form to me. And you said, go through that. You should know, I mean, even though everything is what I wrote, but still you wanted me to just get the dates and everything correct and stick to, like, you should be able to answer any question which is being asked from that file. So that helped. So I went through that file and I just made a copy for myself with all the dates, important dates, and the exit dates and the entry dates, the job details, job description, and all that stuff. I just had in a piece of paper just for the quick references whenever I want to. And that's the only preparation I had to do. Like just go through the job. The job profile is what you do daily, but you have to put the correct terms in there. So I just practiced a good way to say that in a couple of paragraphs. So that's the preparation I had.
And that's absolutely critical for our listeners to make note of, that you have to kind of treat it as though you're showing up for an exam. And when you go there, you have to prepare, you have to create, like you said, we call it here a cheat sheet, right? So you create maybe a 1-page where you handwrite the key elements of your case, and you practice it. You might reference it, you might not it might not even come up in discussion with the interviewer, but at least when you write it down by hand, you commit a portion, if not all of it, to memory, so that when the person asks you the question, you can recollect and say, yes, I entered the country at this time, or yes, these are my job duties. Yes, this was my pay. Yes, during that time, I was on the H-1B working at this location or that location. So that's very good. And I think that was instrumental in how this interview went for you, it was successful, of course, but please continue. Okay. So
no, that's right. What you said was exactly right. I mean, just because I wrote that information out there, it just builds your confidence. Like you know everything in the back of the head, whatever you have written. And I have that cheat sheet. I have like a 3-page cheat sheet in a small book. And I had the H1 dates, when first receipt happened, when my renewals happened. I don't need to remember it by every word, but it is I had like 7 H1 renewals. So it's a huge, like 14 years, you'll have close to 7 renewals. So I just had a rough date of which year each renewals happened, just for the information of like, it's a timeline you have in your head. That way, when you're speaking to them, you are more confident and you have a clear picture of what your case is. That's all. That helped me.
The very important point again, Vijay, that you mentioned about confidence. A lot of our clients and a lot of individuals in the world get very nervous going into this, because naturally, you are in the country for so long. And of course, I feel it's unfair how long, especially Indian nationals, are waiting for a green card. It's such a backlog, but they wait for so long. And I guess the anxiety builds over that decade, over the 14 years that you were here, because first of all, H-1B constant adjudication challenges of the H-1B. And now here it is, it's like the final exam. In one way, you feel, okay, this is the final exam. Of course, the citizenship is there, but citizenship is different. Your security with the green card is very important. So people get very nervous and they call me up. They're like, okay, what if they ask me about this? What if they ask me about that? say, yes, absolutely. They might ask you about your employment history here. They might ask you about your employment history there. But you be honest, you be forthcoming. Confidence is very important. Confidence is critical here because it sets the tone and it sets the energy for the interview, how the interview happens and the interview day in general. So, okay, continue, Vijay. So now it is the morning of the interview. You're at home, you're getting ready. Go ahead. Tell me about the journey.
Just one more thing to add over there is I did check the place of the interview. I mean, I didn't physically check, but I checked in Google just to figure out where the parking lot is and where the nearest pharmacy is in case I need to get a Xerox or extra copy. Do I need if I forget something? But I just did a small recon of the area because it's like a 1.5 hour drive for me. So I just want to make sure, even if I forget something, because coming back home would be difficult in the 1.5 hour drive. So I just made some basic information of where you could stand for some time because it's you don't know, it's the new place for you. If you're a little outside of the town, so just do a basic recon which will help you out where the parking lot is, how long does it take to walk from there to the place, and where is the nearest shop where you can have some lunch or coffee kind of thing. Just do a small recon over there. That way you're way confident and you have a backup plan to park your car. Those kind of things. I was prepared for that. So I knew exactly where I should park in the morning. So that helped me on the day of the interview. We drove, it's a 1 hour drive for us. I and my wife both had the interview. So we drove there, we parked the car in the designated pre-assigned parking. So I parked over there and it was just a 2-minute walk from there. I could see the entrance of the building. So we stayed there until 20 minutes before my check-in time. And then I walked up to the door and that's the start of the day.
All right. First of all, I salute you for doing that much reconnaissance on the location. That's great. Attorneys sometimes take for granted because we go to these centers so often. We know where the coffee shop is. We know where the food places are, or if we need to make photocopies or do any last minute sort of work if the requirement arises. But that's great. Now you walk through the door of the center and now you could first of all, did you wear jeans? Did you wear casual clothes? What did you wear to the interview?
See, I did discuss that with you. So it being you told me to wear a blazer and a tie, and I was not that interested to wear a tie. I was up to blazer was fine. So when you said you have to wear a tie also, I was thinking, then the point which you gave me was it was an employment based. So how do you dress if you're going to an interview for your employment, in your meeting or in your office meeting when you're meeting your client? How do you go to them? You are dressed in a proper business formals and you visit your client. So I said I saw your point, and that's why I went with the blazer and a tie, and I walked in with a complete formals, with a blazer, complete the shoes and everything. Was as if I would have gone to a real interview or a real meeting in the office.
That's wonderful. The reason I gave that advice is because, in my opinion, like I said to you earlier, it sets the tone. It builds confidence. You know you're there for something that is critical to you. It's important to you. And then the interviewer understands that, okay, this gentleman is treating it as a respectable event in his or her life. And that's why I recommended wear a blazer, wear a tie, wear a suit. Be clean, dress in a way that the interviewer says, okay, he is respecting the process. And that's essentially why I tell everyone, I say, dress as well as you can, dress as nicely as you can. And it might be subconsciously affecting the interviewer and the entire process. Okay.
Yeah,
so now
I agree to that. If not a blazer, at least as formal as you can, proper, well-dressed would help a lot. For me, the blazer kind of helped me, but you look professional there. You just walk in, they treat you a little differently. They know that you are an employment based as soon as they see you in that formals.
Exactly. Okay. So now they call your name. You're walking. You're walking.
Yeah, you walk in. There's a security check. You're allowed to carry your mobile. You can carry a bag. So my wife had her own bag, and I had my bag with the documents. And we walked in. We went through the security clearance. Just make sure you don't have any Swiss knives or that kind of stuff. That it's a proper airport like security. You have to remove your shoes, and the belt. So just be prepared for those things. And then once you're done with the security clearance, you walk into this building had both the courthouse and the USCIS building, USCIS office in there. So they direct you towards the USCIS section. And once you go there, you show your ID cards and the interview letter, and they'll ask you if you have any extra documents you want to submit before the interview. So I had my medicals resubmitted, because even though we sent it with the form, as you suggested, the COVID form was not done. So just for the safety of, just to be on the safe side, we took the medicals as discussed with you. So we submitted, we gave them the medicals, and then they asked us to sit in the waiting area. And they said one of the interview officer would call you. It's like 15 minutes wait. And then a lady came up and she called my name and my wife's name and asked us to come in. Okay.
All right. So go ahead, keep going. Tell me what happens next.
We walked in. She took us to her room, and the way the room was set up is she had a glass in front of her, and our chairs were like 6 feet away from her desk towards the wall. And her room, it was a lady who was interviewing me. She said, "Good morning." She asked us to sit down. And then she took the pictures. She took individual photos of us. She asked me to stand on the side because she wanted to take my wife's picture. And then she took the fingerprints, just the index fingerprints, both left and right. And then once we sat down, she said, "How are you? How is it going?" And she just asked the names, confirmed. Then she asked for the passport and driver license along with the interview letter. So we just gave those documents to her. She looked at them. She asked if I have a copy of my driver license, which I didn't have. My copy was there, my wife's copy. I forgot to take the driver license of my wife because she recently got renewed. So I didn't have that copy. It just slipped out of my hand. I don't know how I forgot that part after all this recon, but still, just stay confident and just say to her that, "Sorry, I forgot." And she said, "Oh, it's fine." She took both the license and she said, "I'll get them for you." And she went out, got a copy of those two IDs, and she was fine. And then she just sat down and she said, instead of asking the questions, I'll just give you a questionnaire. And she wanted me to fill that questionnaire with all the information just for me, because I was employment based. She said, "I have some questionnaire to give it to you, and so that it's easy for me to type it in." So she gave me a list of questions, like 40 questions in a 3-sheet page. My name was already printed on that. And then it had the rest of the questions, like your date of birth, place where you were born, and your employment duties, who do you report to, how many hours do you work, what is your salary, just the regular questions of all related to job. And it has some questions like, do you have 401k with the company? Do you have, it's a straightforward, there's no correct answer, wrong answer, either it's yes or no. So it's all straightforward answard. What is
asking
the client,
asking about your benefits and things like
benefits, that. Things like that. It's all straightforward questions. And she said, if you need extra sheet of paper to write, she gave me a note, the sticky notes. And she said, if for any question, if you need to think of adding extra details, you can use a notepad and just stick it beside that question and add additional information in that. So I used the notepad for the job description and the reason why I qualify for this job. So those details, I just used an extra sheet of stick pad. Otherwise, the rest all questions were like yes and no's and just the name of the company. So they ask you, how many locations does your company have? All those basic details related to your company. And the one weird question I had was, they knew that I had a house because it's there in my documents. So they asked, if you get a green card, will you sell your house? I said, it's a straightforward question. I said, no, but you can expect those kind of questions also. But it's a straightforward thing. So she took all the documents. So in the 15 minutes I was writing the document, she was just joking with my wife, saying that your husband is writing, so I'm just waiting for him. So let's wait. And she was casual. I mean, like, she was just talking to my wife, nothing related to the 485 thing. She was just, I'm just waiting for your husband to write. Let him take your time. That's what she was just kept on saying over there. And once I was done with the document, she took it and then she wanted to type that back into her system. So it took another 15 minutes and she was constantly saying, sorry, I'm typing it in, but just wait for 15 minutes. So it's just a casual talk here and there. She was typed all the answers in and then she printed out the document, gave it back to me and said, can you double verify if everything looks correct? I checked, it had some typos in there and I asked her to recorrect them. So I gave whatever the typos were there, I just corrected and gave it back to her. She corrected them. One of them was, she just made a simple mistake. Like, I wrote correctly, but again, she typed it wrong. And she's like, oh man, that's a fat finger. I'm sorry about that. And then she corrected that and gave it back to me. And once everything looked fine, she took a signature of the document saying that whatever I wrote is fine. One thing I forgot at the start, you take the oath. As soon as you walk in, they ask our name. You take the oath. You raise your right hand and just take the oath. That's when they take the ID cards just to see that you're the correct person. And once you're done with the oath, that's when she asks for the copies of the documents. So that's part is where the oath part is what I missed, but that's done at the start of the interview only. Before they take your picture, they take the oath saying that you're going to say everything truth, and they ask you to sign a document saying that you are waiving right for attorney. So it's just a small document that says you don't need an attorney for this interview, and you're waiving the right to have an attorney. So you just sign the document, take the oath, and that's when after that is what all this started. Like the questionnaire, the 30 to 40 questionnaire. Then she typed back those information and gave. After the questionnaire was filled, she asked somebody to come in to witness the signature. So there was another officer who came in who witnessed my signature of that questionnaire, and she took the documents. Then
how was your Vijay? Tell me, how was your demeanor with the interview? Tell me a little bit about that. How I know you were confident going in, which I'm very happy that my client went in confident, because you should be confident. But tell me about the non-case related interactions. Let's group it as that. Were they friendly? Was she friendly with you? What did you guys talk about? Go ahead.
She was very friendly. I mean, she just said hi, and she was like close to 50 years of age, around 50, 52, I assume by looking at her. And she was very open. I mean, she spoke with me, with my wife. She was like, she had a lot of trees in the back, she had a lot of office plants in the back. And I don't know, I liked it so much. I told her, like, within 15, 20 minutes of the interview, I said, your office looks good, because the trees she decorated very well. Said, your office looks good with all the trees. And she said, yeah, I like my plants. And we did have some casual discussion about the plants and what. And there was one plant on the corner. It was like very beautiful with the pink color. So I asked her casually, man, that plant looks nice. What is the name of the plant? And she said, that's a plastic one. So it was a little away from the window. I was just in the corner. And she just, I was like, it was bright and blooming. I was like, how can without the sunlight, it's so bright? I just asked her casually. It's like, it's just my thought. I was like, it's in the corner, no sunlight. And still it looks so active, the plant. So I wanted to just know the name of the plant in case something which could be so beautiful, it's nice. I was like, I asked her, and she said, oh, that's a plastic plant. She was so casual. I mean, like that made me more confident when talking to her. Like when you get that kind of relationship with the interview, it was easier now. And the first thing where it kind of held me was when she said, oh, it's all right, I'll go get the document, like the copies of the ID cards. So I was like, man, she's very cool. I was like, generally, if you forget a document, they're like, oh, wait, I can't do anything. It's not. She just broke the ice over there by saying that I'll get the copies for you. And she casually stood up, took the ID cards, got the copy for me. So once that was done, I knew her that she was very friendly. I mean, like, she didn't take it as a work. She just like, oh, it's all right. I'll go get it for you. So that.
So let me interrupt there, and this is another very important point. Demeanor and interaction with the interviewer is very important. Now, I've been an attorney for a decade now, and practicing this immigration law and going to interviews. The interviews are generally kind-hearted people. They're human beings. If you are so tense, then they sit there and they're like, okay, here's another tense interviewer. Let me go through the mechanics of it and just get through it. You know, okay, you're missing a document, RFE. You know, okay, you can't answer this right now, RFE. But if you go into the interviewer and you approach them as human beings, you respect them, you respect the process, they generally reciprocate that level of respect and value. And I think that's very important also for all the listeners and the viewers to do. If you're going in for this interview, understand that person is a human being and they have questions because that's their job. They need to assess the validity of it. Obviously, frankly, I don't believe employment-based green card interviews are as critical, and I don't even frankly think they're too necessary because most of it is attested to in the case itself. You know, the employer, the labor certification, et cetera, even the marriage is already proved usually via marriage certificates and all that, and that's not really at question. But I think it's very important what you did there is you treat the person like they are a human being, talk to them nicely. Now, of course, a word of warning. There are, of course, interviewers who are cranky. They're tired. They want to just get through their day. They don't want to talk. You're probably their fifth case in the day and they're exhausted, of course. But the vast majority of people do approach it with a clean slate and they talk with you and give you respect. Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure people understand that.
That's true. I mean, it's not like on the first, as I walked in, I just started talking to her. I was just watching her for like first 5-10 minutes. When she took the documents and she said, don't worry, I'll get it. Then I knew that she was like a friendly interviewer. And it's not only that, if there was some serious questions, like in middle, she had some questions about like in the document, she's like, did you really sign this? So at that time, she was serious and asking proper questions. Like when talking friendly, she was friendly. When she was asking proper questions, she was like, okay, did you really sign this document? And she just double checked if I signed the 485 form with the same signature or not. And she like, is this your sign? So when asking those questions, she was a little straightforward and focused. But when you're talking casually with her, she was very friendly. So she was like, you can see the both ways of her. So you have to treat, when you're answering your questions, just answer properly, stick to your point, and answer confidently. When you're talking to her casually, that's the other way. Like that's how I had both the chats with her.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So now you answered questions about the employment history, your employer, the job. Did any questions about the marriage come? Did she ask your wife any questions?
After all this is done, she went ahead with my 485 questions. You have that 20 questions where you have that yes or no questions. Most of the cases would be no for everybody. Like, did you like any criminal charges? All that kind of questions which you have in the 485. She just went through that list, and it's like she opened my file and she went through the complete list of the files. A complete list of questions. She asked me what baby I was born, what is the date of birth. She double checked the date of birth and all that stuff in the file. She was just tick marking everything on the file. She went through this 485 questions.
The first set of questions that she asked you, they were about whether you've been part of any, if you have any, put it this way, any violent past, any history of being part of a terrorist organization or anything like that. You know, those types of questions
kind of questions.
They ask.
Yeah, it's all in 485. It's all in the 485 document. So she's just going to tick mark them as you answer them. So it's like like that close to 20 questions. I didn't go through all of them, but it's generally, we have answered everything as no, except if somebody has the license or any issues related to DUI, but even that was no for me. But that's, other than that, there's no other question which you say yes. So I went through that list, whatever was there answered.
Okay.
Then after that, she went to my wife, and same questions were asked me, what is the date of birth and all. She did take our birth certificates, the originals. She asked if we have our original birth certificates, and we showed them to her. And my wife had a change of name after, like, the last name was not completely written for my wife in her original birth certificate. So we had a corrected birth certificate with us. So we just offered it to her. They're saying that we have a corrected, like, in case it was written just with a short letter for her, not the full form of the last name. So we had a corrected birth certificate. So we just gave it to her, and she had asked me if I had a copy of that. And I did have a copy of that one. So I just gave it to her, and she said, okay, that's fine. And she added that copy into her form. And then she asked her for the same list of questions what she asked me. And as she went through my wife, and she said, oh, you both are from the same town, because the date of place of birth was same for both of us. So she asked, so do you know each other? And she asked, like, it's an arranged marriage. So we did tell her about arranged marriage, saying that it's an arranged marriage. It's like, how do you get married like that? She said, my parents know each other. So we had a casual talk about the arranged marriage and how the Indian arranged marriage works out. And she did go personal about her marriage and her kids, saying that, oh, my kids would have never agreed to that. So that level, it's now you're close to 1.5 hours into the call, into the meeting over there now. So I don't know what, she just opened up like that, and she just told about her daughter and her kid, how they won't agree to marry. They will never do an arranged marriage kind of thing, or they at least not even going to date same, like if she introduced somebody, this kid is not even going to meet her. So that kind of thing, details she gave it to me. I mean, like, I don't know, she just opened up like that. And after that, she asked me if I had any questions. Like, she asked the same questions to my wife, like the 485 questions. After everything is done, she said, I have no more questions. Like, if you have any other questions. We said, we asked, like, where do we check it? She said, you have to check the status online. And then she had the form on the side already signed about the interview form, like, that I've attended the interview. It's a pre-stamped document with her. She just checked in that your case is being held for review. There are 3 reasons out there, and she selected the first one. And she said, you can take the copies. And we said, thank you. And she walked us out to the door. That's close to 2 hours we were with her, but I didn't feel like 2 hours. To tell you the truth, I didn't at all feel like 2 hours.
Wow.
My wife was a little bored because I was writing the questions, going through that. She was like, I felt like sleeping. I was like, there's nothing. She's not talking to me much other than that questions. And that's how the interview was done. And we just walked out. There's a big point after I walk out. I can tell you that afterwards. But once we came out, we went back to our car. So it took 15 minutes or 10 minutes for us to walk back to get out of the building and use the restrooms. And then by the time we reached the car, it was like 15 minutes. So we reached the car, and you won't believe, I was removing my blazer, and after drive back, right? It's a 1.5 hour drive. I didn't want to sit in that blazer and the same shoes to drive back. So I was just changing my shoes, and then I get a call. I was expecting it to be my office call because it had a restricted number kind of thing. So I just picked up because I don't know who from my office would be calling. So I just picked up the call, and it was the same lady who interviewed me. She called me, and she asked me, I forgot to ask you a couple of questions. What's the name of the company you're working on? I said, it's whatever the company I'm working on. She said, no, your client location. What is the name of the client where you're working at? Then I gave her the name. So I just make sure that she heard it properly. So I just pronounced it properly, and she took her time. She read it properly, and she double checked with me. And then she said, what is the address of the client location? So I gave her the client location address with details, with the PIN code, everything. She said, okay, thank you. Thank you for this. I was just missing this information. She said, thank you. And she put the phone. I was like, I was worried now. I was just there 15 minutes back, and she called me. I never heard USCIS calling a person on the mobile. So I was like, I don't know why she called me. I was tense a little bit, like, did I do something wrong? It's not, I never heard you say also that they're going to call you. I know it was an interview so that was a little
very
worrying
rare,
for me,
very rare for them to say, let me take the additional step to get the clarity and before issuing an RFE or before putting the case on hold. The reason they ask you about your client location, the reason they ask you about all that information about where you worked is to ensure that your H-1B history, that your non-immigrant visa work location history matches up with your client location, that you filed your amendments on time, that you've been working authorized.
that was really surprising. So immediately, the next couple of days were holidays. It was close to weekend. So I did put a email to you on Monday just to double check, like did get a call from the lawyer, and that's when I had sent out an email to you. And within a week, when I was talking to you on the phone about this call, about how the interview went and all this information, and that's when I had got my I thought something like, I was talking to you, and my wife walks in and says, "Oh, there's a USCIS priority letter," and that had the card in there.
No, that was a unique moment for me too. I've never on all these years, I've never had the client actually say, "I just got the mail in my hand. Let me open it up." It was a joyous event for me. I loved it. That was great. I'm gonna start recommending that to all my clients, that when the green card is actually in the envelope, don't open it until you call me up. Let's open it together. But it's a fun moment. You know, you've been waiting for so many years. 14 years, you said, right? So
yeah,
14 years, and then in that moment you get that goal, which I think is spectacular. Well, Vijay, is there any? First of all, thank you very much for sharing your experience. It's a great thing. What we're doing is letting the immigrant community know that there is still hope, and it's all doable, and to keep on going. And when the interviews come, be prepared, have confidence. Is there any overarching principle, anything you want to tell the listeners about this interview, other than, of course, Ramchand and Raval as wonderful attorneys? But tell me, what would you say in conclusion?
See, you have to be well prepared. Just go through the documents you have, and that builds your confidence. So once you walk in, if you have that confidence, everything is easy. Like, even if the interviewer is staff, or like if it's very grumpy also, if you are confident enough, they will know that they're looking for your body language and the way you talk. That's how they have, like, they don't know you from before. It's at 1 hour you're with them. They have to figure out whether you're true or not. So if you're confident and well-mannered, that will help you out. That's what helped me. I think when I spoke to you, that made it clear. Like when you said it's very rare to get that call, I think the way that relationship we built in the 2 hours is what made her search for my phone number and give me that call. Otherwise, she could have simply raised an RFP and she could have got the details. Like, it could have delayed another like couple of months or 3 months or 4 months, I don't know. But she could have done that. So I think the relationship you build with them, it's a two-way thing. You get to be confident and build that relationship, and your interview should be straightforward.
Well, the important thing is that you also did bring copies of your birth certificate. And one point to remember, you walked in there and you said to the original person you met, you said, "Here's a copy of my medicals, is the documentation," right? So you took your medicals, because I remember telling you your COVID vaccine requirement is a new requirement. When we originally filed your case, there was no COVID vaccine, first of all. Well, there might have been, I don't recall. No, I don't think so. I think it was still in development. So you walked in prepared. You had everything with you, right? You had your birth certificate, your wife's birth certificate with the name correction was there too. I think that energy was reciprocated, and I'm very happy about that. The uniqueness of her calling you back reminds me to have all the viewers make sure you put your mobile number on the forms, because that is most likely where she referenced it, right? She quickly flipped to the page and said, okay, this is Vijay's phone. Let me give him a call, right? And so it's important, if you have a mobile number, which I'm sure you do, just put it there in the form. You never know how and when it can help you. So Vijay, thank you very, very much. I imagine that now with the green card in hand, you've got big things planned. And by the way, I assume you're celebrating this weekend. You're going to take your wife somewhere good, at least a good restaurant, your wife, your kids, everybody, you going?
Yes, I did go to a temple, but yeah, this weekend we are just planning out to go out, have a nice time.
And I'm so happy. Vijay, thank you so much again. I appreciate everything. I appreciate you taking a time out on this, especially during a Saturday. And I'm sure our viewers are grateful as well.
Thank you, Sachin.
Okay, and there you have it. I hope you found this conversation interesting and helpful. Vijay, again, thank you so much for being a part of this project. To all of you who are actually watching this video, thank you so much. First of all, our last video got like 4,000 views, and I was so shocked. I was like, wow, 4,000 people are watching my video. It's so great. So even if 5 people watch this video and it helps, thank you so much for watching. I sincerely appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. Remember, every case is unique. So make sure you talk to your attorney about case-specific strategies. However, if you're looking for counsel, if you need legal representation, please feel free to give us a call. You'll be very happy with the services we provide. Or go to our website at www.immlegal.com. Thank you very much, and most importantly, have a wonderful day.